थोड़ी विस्तार से जानकारी हमारे दर्शकों को दे देते हैं अब क्या कुछ हो रहा है बांग्लादेश में. In a shocking turn of events in Bangladesh, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has tendered a resignation and left the country. According to sources, the former PM, who was seen leaving the country in a military chopper, has reportedly landed in Ghaziabad at the Hindon airport and is said to be travelling to London. Visuals from Bangladesh are flashing all over the internet as protesters barged into the PM's house in Dhaka and took to the streets to protest. Amidst all of this, Bangladesh Army Chief Wakar al-Uzzama has held a press conference and announced that the army would be coordinating with the Awami League and BNP to form an interim government under the president's guidance in the country bound by protests. The resignation and takeover by the army now comes after the deaths of as many as 300 people since the protests began in July. The protests were carried out by students and their retaliation against the government's quota policy and its functioning under the banner Long March to Dhaka. Despite several internet, university and school shutdown as attempts to shut down the protests intensified and escalated tensions in the country. Let me quickly go across to our guests now joining us live. Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian. Pathikrit Pain, geopolitical analyst, also is live with us. Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, former diplomat, is joining us live. Sultan Mohammad Zakaria, co-founder Bangladeshi Diaspora for Justice and Accountability, also is with us live. Let me begin with you first, Professor Nalapat. Very concerning development now in Dhaka. The big question is, after Sheikh Hasina's departure, what happens next?
Well, Uday, the short answer is, for some time, definitely chaos. And don't forget, the vandalization of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's statue. Mujibur Rahman is the founder of Bangladesh. He is, in a way, the liberator of Bangladesh, because together with his Mukti Bahini, the Indian armed forces liberated Bangladesh from Pakistani occupation and genocide. So essentially, the people who are protesting are people who at that time were against Sheikh Mujibur Rahman taking over, and they wanted to support Pakistan, and they wanted to support, frankly, even the genocide against the Bengali population. So it's a very, very serious development. There's no question about it. But the point is, these people don't want the army in charge. They'd like the army in charge only once they can fill the army with their own people, with violent extremists. So it won't be an army, it will be a militia. And frankly, it will become a terror hub. So from that point of view, they obviously don't want the military. They don't want that to happen, because the military is a military that was formed after the liberation of Bangladesh. It was formed as a consequence of the liberation of Bangladesh. And it's not the Pakistan military at all. It's an entirely different military. But today what's happening is, you've got people who are the descendants of, the former the Razakars and others who basically opposed Bangladeshi independence, who wanted to remain under the grip of Pakistan. These people have temporarily taken over and they're storming the palace. The reason they're storming the palace is they don't want this military. If they would like their own government, and then they would like to infiltrate all the organizations of state with their own people, including the military and the police. It's an extremely concerning development. And so far as geopolitics is concerned, unfortunately, China has, from the beginning, supported the Pakistan military. At that point in time, so did the United States. And now China is basically very happy at the turn of events in Bangladesh, because of a Wahhabi militia suits them. They have a Sino-Wahhabi alliance together with their alliance with Russia. So Russia is not pro-Wahhabi, but China is. Where Wahhabism is concerned, outside China. Inside China, they suppress it with an iron hand. So frankly, Uday, these are very concerning developments, and we have to wait over the next few days and weeks to see how it plays out. But it's quite obvious that this is not an equilibrium situation. And once again, we have a situation in which an elected government has been removed through street violence and street protests. It's something that has happened elsewhere in the past. It's something that's happened, for example, in Ukraine in 2014. And frankly, it's a very ominous development, because when you want change, it should be through the ballot box. It can't be through sticks and stones and rocks and chaos and bedlam on the streets. And now we are seeing streets all over the world fill up And some time ago, I had pointed out that the part of the tactics of the PRC was to ensure through their grip on social media, all kinds of social media, that the fringe elements were given power, and the middle, the moderate elements were reduced. And I think that is what is happening across the world. It's happening in the US, it's happening in UK, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in a lot of countries. And so far as Bangladesh is concerned, it's clearly a victory for those who were against the liberation of Bangladesh, who were against Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the liberator of Bangladesh, and they have brought it into public view by trying to vandalize a statue of the Bangabandhu himself. So I think it's a very concerning development. It's not the end of the story. India, of course, cannot react in a hurry, but it has to wait and watch developments. But in the meantime, once the situation develops, certainly from the beginning, India is not going to take sides with extremism. India is not going to take sides with those who favored the Pakistan army over the people of Bangladesh. So that much is clear. But I think this is going to call for a very careful approach over the next few weeks, and I presume that's going to happen.
Pathikrit Pine, was the resignation inevitable of Sheikh Hasina? Did you believe it would happen in this dramatic fashion, where she would not even be able to address the country and would have to hurriedly flee from the nation? Did you expect this, the way the protests were spiraling over the last few days and weeks, Pathikrit?
Uday, first of all, no, I wasn't expecting this kind of sudden resignation, but things were definitely going out of control. Social media was filled with anger, which has gone beyond the student community, and it has spread across various sections of the society. So let me tell you one thing. For any kind of movement, or if it is front-ended by the students, whether that movement is a organic one or a orchestrated one, it is actually a thumb rule never to use bullet against them. The moment you use firepower against students, the moment you kill students, 50, 100, 150, even if a section of them were not right in what was happening in terms of the complete destruction of critical infrastructure, even then, there are photographs, some of the young people who died actually have become icons over there. One was Mir Mugdho. Mir Mugdho was just distributing water and he was shot dead. There was a person called Abu Saeed. He was a Dhaka University student. He was just standing with his two hands out, luring the police that shoot me, and he was shot. Now, whatever might be the fact, even if there is an external involvement, if you give free hand to police to shoot, then you have lost the plot. And this is a cardinal mistake the establishment in Bangladesh did. You could have used rubber bullets, you could have used tear gas shells, you could have shown restraint. And look at what, if you look at the manner in which this protest happened, it is a template of the Arab Spring, which happened in Middle East. It is a template of what happened in Ukraine. It is almost a template of what was attempted in India in the form of anti-CA protest or the anti-farm law protest. And the government of India showed extreme restraint in terms of ensuring no bullet is fired. I don't know who was advising the government, but I think use of firepower by the police, and the police was ruthless. Look, such kind of tactics may work in certain places, but it would not work in Bangladesh. The Bengali culture is not that it would accept it. So it spiraled out of control. It started with a quota protest where, and for a particular comment by the Prime Minister, it could have still been contained had bullets not been fired. But then, the first wave, you had 200 people who died. Then there were social activists, civil rights activists who came and filed petitions in the court so that there are restraints put so that, bullets are not used against students. In spite of that, when the second wave of protest started yesterday, again, 100 odd people died, including a lot of policemen, including the fact that a lot of policemen were beaten to death, including the fact that there are elements of opposition parties, there are rogue elements who are also involved. But the entire thing was front-ended by students. So while the students were protesting perhaps for a genuine cause or whatever as per their issue, because it's an internal issue of Bangladesh, simultaneously there are many other rebel rousers, saboteurs who were destroying critical infrastructures, and perhaps the government was compelled to take action. But the entire narrative building government of Bangladesh failed in it. So invariably a situation was created where Bangladesh army had to take a stand, and the Bangladesh army refused, from what I can understand, to actually go against the people of Bangladesh or completely shoot people at will. They did not do it. It was primarily, from what I understand, the police was doing it. So there was a clear-cut distinction between the police and the army. There were slogans who were created in Bengali, which was like, right now they want a army to take over. That has happened, but does it mean that it will lead to peace? I don't think so. There might be a temporary phase where the government will be run by the army, possibly unless an interim government is formed. And elections, if it comes, we have to see how it works out. But this is a clear-cut warning for India also. It may happen in India. This is, again, I'm telling you, you never know. It's a pilot testing happening. Those who were not happy with the results of 2024 elections, some of the external elements who were not happy, it can be attempted all over again in this country. It has been attempted in the past. When Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina made a comment few months back that somebody from the West had told her that if she allows a particular country to set up a base somewhere in one of the islands of Bangladesh, then she would have a free pass, otherwise there will be problem. That was her statement. I am not trying to draw any conjecture out of that. All I'm saying is this: when you have a situation like that, when there's a world today where regime changes are triggered through civil unrest, the government should have been far more careful. The government should have not used firepower. The government should not brought in armored vehicles on the street. It became a full-fledged students versus the government. Students versus government. If a situation arises, invariably the sympathy of people will always be with students. Dead body of students is something which evokes that kind of emotions which nothing else does. So I think the plot was lost. Does it mean it will be a day for a new sunshine for Bangladesh? I doubt. There are deep polarization within that country. There are other systemic challenges. How they will deal with it, I don't know. I completely agree with Professor Nalapur that though some people did not want the government to continue, they should have fought the election. But not fighting election and using this route to actually oust a government, it is very, very bad for democracies of the world. Today you would see many in the West might be clapping and many in the East might be clapping. And then at the same time they say that they're champions of democracy. So there is something fundamentally wrong. Back to you, Uday.
Yes, let me also, in fact, quickly get Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev in at this point as well. Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, now, what should be the Indian viewpoint on what all is transpiring in Bangladesh? A stable Bangladesh, of course, is in India's interest. We wouldn't want a volatile neighbor. What should be the Indian viewpoint on all that is transpiring across our border?
Thank you, Uday. It's a difficult question to answer, but I'll just go by the rule book. What has happened in Bangladesh is an internal matter of that country. We have interest in stability and smooth transition in that country, but there is precisely little that can be done from outside. It's for Bangladeshis themselves to resolve the problem. Having said that, India has garnered enough experience in handling chaotic neighborhood, be it Maldives, be it Sri Lanka, be it Nepal, and now Bangladesh. Bangladesh is the biggest of our neighbors with which we have to contend with in a peacetime. Pakistan being population-wise bigger, but that's another story. Now, how does one deal with such a situation? First of all, by not doing anything in a hurry, by being astute in observations and establishing contacts with whoever is status quo power in Dhaka. We need to establish contacts and we need to work with them to stabilize the country. I'm sure army to army, there have been contacts between Indian armed forces and Bangladeshi armed forces, Bangladesh Rifles and BSF and others, and these would be activated. At the same time, I think we have assiduously maintained good neighborhood policies. The economies of both countries have been slowly getting enmeshed, be it logistics, be it power plant by Adani in Bangladesh, for example, and there are other issues, other developments where a certain interest group which has benefited from transit policies, which has benefited from Indian involvement in garment industry in Bangladesh, and so on and so forth, has developed. We need to activate these interest groups. We also need to ensure that Hindu minority in Bangladesh is not persecuted by the new power players in their sort of assertion for vendetta and doing away with the symbols of the past. We have had good reign with Bangladesh during past 15 years of Sheikh Hasina Wajid's rule, but I think we have been very careful not to be personally associated with her way of running the government or getting too deeply into Indian leader and Bangladeshi leaders showing too much of born home. So we have played safe, and I think this would be rewarded after dust has settled in Dhaka. But then I should mention that Bangladesh has a history of Islamic fundamentalist fringe, Jamaat-e-Islami, Razakars, and even ISIS have had some power play in that part. BNP, during its time to spite India, has cultivated these fringe elements. And I think right now the question that should be topmost in Indian minds is whether this third time army intervention in Bangladesh would follow the rule book of General Irshad or General Zia. General Irshad, as you know, had a different kind of outlook. He relinquished power on his own, while General Ziaur Rahman was forcibly removed, and his wife took over as Khalida Zia, leader of the BNP. So let's wait and see. But I think we're doing we're doing well by not being too close to the powers, any of the powers, until the dust settles in Dhaka. Thank you.
Yes. Prashanta Kumar Sheel also is joining us now live, media educator and international political analyst. Prashanta, we of course are keeping a close eye on these developments, even as Sheikh Hasina has landed in Delhi as we speak. But, Prashanta, as far as now this interim government is concerned, How long is it expected to govern Bangladesh? And is it just going to be a proxy of the army or not?
Right. This is the interim government. Already our chief army officer he can declare that is a combination, combined government actually from different parties from in our ruling party, and they are from opposition actually. That's a combined government. But I think the protester from the student and the mass people, they are not agreed that kind of combination government. They want to say that they need a pure democratic government. They can voting and they can enroll actually. So the system actually, the total system is too much volatile at this time actually. We have not a good very a good history in army personalities. We haven't very good experience. We haven't not a very good experience in 2 terms in. That is one is General Ashad and one is Geo Rahman. 2 terms we have in military. We have reason we see that, but they are not very good landmark in our country. So this is the 3rd time from the army officials, the higher authority, they can take over the control of the government. So I can think they can say that is a qualification government or qualifying government. So that is it's very tough actually to continue. To every parties come to in a center in a one vessel, because that's too much. Their ideological problem is concerning, because there is so much left parties that is so more fundamentalist parties that is look like in Jamaat Islam, that kind of very big and very much Islamic fundamental parties in our country, because mass people love Jamaat Islam and Islamic ideology. So I can think is a very much concerning actually is the factor. Is it sustainable for the from that kind of government? Because there is lots of pressure and from the internationally, and lots of pressure from the local level, the mass people, and also the level of the military. You know that the military is all the people love the military officers. That's not like that. They haven't looked like so much Islamic fundamentalists. They love and they love some people are loved in BNP types. So that is an actual ideological problem from when our military, the chief military officer declared that you can rule that kind of government. I can think this is a very much proxy government actually. So this government's one kind of vacuum government. It's not a very sustainable government. Like that. So it's very much very unfortunate for the country actually what is happening. So in our country there is no strong opposition party come from the part actually. That is the problem. And every parties, every small parties, they can ideological parties, they come to the power. So that is beginning from the clash, because they cannot obey someone's directions, because they want to come from the power. They can want to come to the systematic and enrolled.
Okay, let me in fact also quickly get in a perspective now from Professor Nalapat on Professor Nalapat. You know, China and the US also and Pakistan also keeping a close eye, of course, on what all is transpiring. Clearly, this does suit China. Don't you believe, Professor Nalapat? Also, the US has been wary of Sheikh Hasina's administration, isn't it?
Yes, I'm afraid Washington's policy is somewhat confused. On the one hand, it claims it's against extremism. On the other hand, it supports extremism or extremist parties in some parts of the world. As far as China is concerned, it has got a short-term adrenaline boost. But as in the case of the Maldives, fundamentally, India and Bangladesh need to work with each other. It's good for Bangladeshi people, and they've experienced that over the last 10 years. So I think from that point of view, the relationship will be, in the long run, stable. But yes, there's going to be a period of intense turmoil, and I agree with the ambassador. It's wise not to jump in, publicly and say all kinds of things. I think it's better to keep a low profile in terms of diplomacy. Make it behind the scenes diplomacy, and let's see how the situation evolves. But this is a very evolving, fluid situation today.
Okay.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.